Hello everyone and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. I'm Ascendance and I want to take you back in time for this video and talk about something that I did a few months ago, where I made a video talking about how to use air support effectively in Battlefront 2's Galactic Assault mode. I love Starfighters and bringing them to bear on ground troops is very rewarding. However, since then, there have been quite a few changes to the way aircraft and starfighters work in Galactic Assault, changes to the meta, that bring into question whether or not that video is still relevant, and whether or not you can still use aircraft, starfighters effectively to help your team win and do well. So in this video, we're going to go over what these changes to the meta were or are, and we're going to talk about how this affects the survivability of starfighters in Galactic Assault. We're going to talk about how it affects their ability to play the objective, take out tanks on the ground, take out other aircraft in the air, how it affects their ability to do effective strafing runs against enemy infantry, and if it affected their ability to earn points, because previously starfighters were a really good way to get battle points really quickly. So what were these changes? The obvious one that's very recent is the massive buff to the heavy classes ion torpedo. Now this shoots 3 rockets, it deals a huge amount of damage, it tracks very accurately, and it means that there's a lot more in play to take down starfighters. So that threat potentially weakens them in the meta. The other thing, which precedes this by quite a few months, it's actually a nerf to the splash damage of laser cannons on starfighters. And this, of course, makes it difficult to deal damage, because your damage, if you don't directly hit a target, became a fair bit less. So I played quite a few games this evening, and I focused on sticking in starfighters to see what would happen, and this is what I came up with. So, first topic, survivability. Yes, it is harder to stay alive for a long time in a starfighter. No, it's not impossible to do. You can still survive pretty much an entire game, huge amounts of time, running around in a starfighter, and you won't die. You just have to be a lot more attentive to missiles coming in. Previously, missiles were pretty poor at killing you. Most ship missiles are easy to dodge. However, with the tracking on that enhanced ion torpedo, you do have to be constantly aware of the fact that it's coming at you and ready to dodge it and get out of the way. If you're paying attention to that, I don't think the survivability has changed much, provided you're concentrating. If you're not concentrating, yep, you get taken down a lot, and this does vary a fair bit. Just because Ion Torpedo was buffed, it doesn't mean a lot of people are using it yet. So there was only a few games where it became a real problem, and I had to concentrate a fair bit on avoiding it. Most of the time, I didn't notice it while in a ship. So just because it's still viable to stay in a ship for long periods of time, is it still viable to do that and help your team? So let's talk about if you can still play the objective. Now, of course, this depends on the objective. The nerf to the laser splash damage doesn't really affect you when you're dealing damage to MTTs and AT-ATs for walker assault. When you're trying to down one of those walkers, the splash damage nerf doesn't affect you much. When you're shooting at objectives that involve stopping infantry, so here I'm talking about shooting someone that's holding a ion disruptor, or shooting someone that is trying to slice into a console, or shooting someone that's trying to plant a charge on a sabotage objective. Because they're stationary, you can actually get those bolts to hit them directly, at which point the splash damage nerf doesn't matter. So you've just got to take a small moment longer to line up your shots, and again, this change doesn't really make the aircraft any worse at helping your team with those objectives. The same can be said for tank sniping, and this was one of my favourite applications, especially with bombers. You see a tank, you fly in, and you kill it with massive damage. Because the hitboxes of these vehicles are large enough that most of the time you won't hit him with splash damage anyway, it's just as effective, still holds up, in my assessment at least. As for anti-air capabilities, even with the buff to Ion Torpedo, I still think that starships are the best counter to starships. I find it a lot easier to take down a good pilot in an interceptor than I would on the ground as a heavy, because a great pilot's just going to be able to dodge those missiles anyway, but getting behind an A-wing is an excellent way to take down annoying enemy aircraft. Still top of the line in my opinion. I did discover through my play in 2 areas where these changes really did affect the aircraft's ability to help on the ground, and that was Strafing Runs and Hero Sniping. So, Strafing Runs, one of my favourite applications, is where you find a group of enemies on the ground and you fly through them, hold down the trigger, and blast them with a whole lot of lasers. Now, because you're talking about infantry targets that are often moving around, it can be hard to track them, and this means that a lot of your damage is being dealt through the laser splash area, splash damage effect. And this has been reduced, and therefore it isn't effective as it used to be. It can actually be quite hard to net kills this way. You can still get a lot of assists if you're firing into an area where your own infantry are fighting, but Strafing Runs will no longer be able to rack up 2, 3, 4 kills with extreme ease as they used to. As for Hero Sniping, this is where you'd see the nice green glow of Yoda's lightsaber, hone in on it, fire off a laser barrage, and next thing you know, Yoda is dead instantly from an unfair aerial attack. I think rightly so. This is a lot harder to do now for the exact same reason that Strafing Runs are harder. Fast moving heroes are just hard to hit directly, so the splash damage being a lot weaker means they take a lot less damage. Yes, this does make Starfighters worse in this sense, but I think it's fair because heroes shouldn't just die from a uncounterable strafing run from above, and I'm kind of glad that's the way it is now. And of course, what everyone wants to know about is, can you still earn inordinate amounts of battle points by jumping in a Starfighter, even with these changes to ion torpedo and the splash damage? Yes you can. I've had no problem getting huge amounts of battle points, staying alive for a long time, flying around in any of the ship classes, really. So to sum it all up, are Starfighters still an effective form of air support in Galactic Assault? My answer is yes. I think they have been balanced quite well. You have to be very aware of things like ion torpedoes, and your ability to strafe and wipe out heroes in a single run has been diminished. Just be aware that it is harder to use the Starfighters in that respect. Now, I can't say the same for ground vehicles. Without their mobility and capabilities to avoid torpedoes, they have taken a much harder hit in the meta, but Starfighters are still A-OK by my standards. It's just a lot harder for that A-wing to dominate an entire match without anyone able to shoot back at it. So I think the changes have been positive for Starfighters, and it hasn't nerfed them into the ground, and that makes me quite happy. So there's my little shining light of opinion in the face of a rather demoralizing roadmap that was released over the weekend. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll have some more content coming out soon. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, go fly some Starfighters, because they are still very fun.